Hi, I'm Tracy from juicerecipes.com, and today I wanted to do something really different and really special. Today I wanted to have a phone conversation with the woman who introduced me to juicing. And for those who don't know my story and haven't heard what happened, I was very, very sick. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called Sjogren's syndrome. It was eating away at my organs. I had 4 doctors tell me that I had lymphoma cancer and a blood test that came back positive for cancer. And I was an absolute mess. I was at 95 pounds. My own body was eating its organs. And I was so weak I couldn't hold my head up. And I literally fell down on my face and prayed a desperate prayer and said, God, what do you want me to do? What do I do? And within 24 hours, I was in touch with this beautiful woman who had gone through stage 4 cancer and was now doing very well. I want to go into the details a little bit more with her on the phone. So we're going to be waiting for her call. She's going to be calling us here in a few minutes. And I'm just excited for you to join us. And I hope you feel a part of our conversation as though you're here in the room with us, because that's how I want it to be. And that's how Frieda wants it to be. Hey, hello, Frieda.
Hey, Tracy.
I'm so excited to talk to you right now. I've been waiting for this moment. And so for people who have never heard my story or your story before, I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of a background. And there's no doubt that you were an answer to my prayer, a desperate prayer. Like, I have never prayed such a heartfelt, deep prayer as the one that led me to you. And I remember the very next morning, my former husband went to the job site and Johnny was there, your cousin. And he said, I'm so sorry to hear about your wife and what's happening to her. And he said, but I have this cousin, her name is Frieda, and she had stage 4 cancer and was not expected to live. And would you be interested in talking to her? And Frieda, when I got that news back, I was like, yes, oh, yes, I want to talk to her, please. And life has never been the same from that day forward. And so today we want to hear more of your story and your life and what happened to you. Like, how did you find out that your body was in this condition, Frieda?
Well, actually, I started having stomach pain in February of 1998. And it was just a constant ache in my stomach. And I guess it's important to note that I had never been sick before. I didn't even have a primary care physician. So my first doctor visit, it was just kind of looking through the yellow pages, finding somebody that was close to the office, going to seeing them. And they, pushed on my stomach a little bit and gave me some medication that said it should take care of everything. So a month later, I was still in the same situation, this aching in my stomach, and it just would never go away. I tried eating really soft foods, I tried backing off all kinds of things, but nothing really seemed to take care of it. When I called the same doctor back, they recommended that I just stay on the same, and I think it was Folofactor or something like that for people that have ulcers, and it just didn't resonate with me. So I went to a second doctor and said that I'd already been to the first doctor, had already been on this medication for a month, that there was no changes. So he did several tests. I went through a battery of tests, and they kept insisting that there was nothing wrong with me, and that it was stress, it was, working too hard, not getting enough rest, just an enormous amount of reasons why there was nothing wrong with me, and going as far as to say it was all in my mind. And so the first thing I would say is that you better listen to your body, because your body is going to be the first and the loudest message that you're going to get that something is really wrong. So So the doctor finally got so upset with me that he was like, if you wanted me to continue to run you through a battery of tests, I will, but I'm telling you there's nothing wrong with you. And I'll never forget that because it was a Friday afternoon. I went home that Friday. I was in severe pain, and I started throwing up blood. So I went to the emergency room. Well, they did their check to make sure I had no internal bleeding, which I didn't, and they sent me to a gastroenterologist. And I made an appointment that following Monday. By the time I got to the gastroenterologist, I was in so much pain, hadn't slept through the weekend. I literally walked into the doctor's office, laid on their floor, if you can believe that, because that is how bad I felt. And when he brought me in, I can remember saying to him, if you tell me there is nothing wrong with me, I'm going for your throat. I'm literally going to go for your throat because I'm telling you there is something wrong with me.
Yeah.
So he assured me that he would not tell me that, and I don't know for whose benefit, maybe his or mine, but we did more testing, and that's when they found the tumor. So I got a phone call at work that I needed to make an appointment with a surgeon. And of course, I didn't know any surgeons, so he recommended a surgeon. I went to the surgeon, still oblivious that anything major would be wrong because nothing ever had been. And when I got to the surgeon's office, he asked me, he started talking about lymphoma and lymphoma and lymphoma. And I actually had to stop him and say, are you trying to tell me that I have cancer? Which showed pause on his face because he was like, but you don't know why you're here? And I'm like, no. So needless to say, you hear those words and you're taking way back. I was shocked that he would even say that to me. Initially, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I believe that was maybe on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and they wanted me to schedule the surgery for the following Tuesday. All of my family was out of state, so I had to contact my family, have my family come in, have the surgery. Of course, they asked me all the standard questions about any previous illnesses, had I ever had anything removed from my skin, anything like that. Nothing's ever been removed. Everything was intact. After the surgery, and they removed the tumor, they said the tumor was about the size of a man's fist. And at this time, it's been started in February. I'm now in June of the same year. So I had the surgery. They said the tumor was about the size of a man's fist, but when they sent off the tumor for testing, it came back as melanoma. And as we know, invasive melanoma is, again, this is so many years ago that they just didn't have the treatments that they even have now. So after they removed the tumor, I was very blessed. It was completely contained within that tumor. It had not moved to any of my lymph nodes. They remove an extra section of your intestines, but they did a battery of tests. Every test you can think of, MRIs, body scans, anything they could think of, they tested me. I get home from the hospital. I'm home, I guess, about a week, and I don't hear a phone call. I get no message, and so I obviously think that everything's great, but I called a surgeon because I haven't heard from anyone else. And the surgeon had said, well, no one's called you, and I'm like, no. And he said, well, let me make some phone calls. Then I got the second phone call, and I was told that there was also a tumor in my lung, and that I had to see a thoracic surgeon. So I was at that point, I was at the, I don't really want to name hospitals or anything, but I was at a smaller hospital. So then I went to Emory, which is here in Atlanta, because I decided this was a much bigger situation than I had really imagined. I didn't expect that type of news.
Right.
When I went to Emory, they explained to me what was going on, and in my mind, even though I knew that the spot was in my lung, I just thought they'd go in and pluck it out, and that would be the end of it. But I had one of those doctors that like to throw up the X-ray scan and explain exactly what they were going to do to you. And when they explained that they were going to remove half of my lung, I thought, I just didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, I went nuts. I was hysterical. But still, again, having never been sick, I was very traditional. That's what they said had to be done, and that's what was going to happen. in for the second surgery to have a portion of my lung removed. We had
Oh my
all through that
goodness.
treatment, and every 6 weeks I had to go for a CAT scan to make sure that nothing else was coming up. And I should backtrack a little bit. Because of the size of the first tumor, I was at 100% chance of a reoccurrence.
Oh,
So rule number one is don't ever Google your disease, because that is a really, really bad idea. When I read the articles on Google and looking it up, it basically told me I was at 100% chance of a reoccurrence. And anytime someone tells me they have something, the first thing I say is don't get on the internet. Don't get on the internet. Don't start looking at it. Don't start reading, because you're not going to be happy with what you find.
oh,
So, like I said, they said I was at a 100% chance of reoccurrence, and lo and behold, I think I got through like 10 months, and right at the 11th month, they said another spot had come into my lung, the same lung.
oh.
And I was seeing an oncologist, and there was really no treatment for invasive melanoma. They did use a treatment which is called interferon, but interferon is something that you have to inject into yourself. First of all, that didn't sound like a pleasant idea. I was going to have to do it every day. Nah, I didn't see that happening. And they said it probably only had about a 3% chance of doing anything for me. And I truly felt like I could pray 3% worth of help.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
opted not for that treatment. It's like, if 3% is all I'm going to get out of it, I'm not sticking myself with a needle every day. I'll pray harder, and I'll pray 3% of help.
Well-
And when speaking, I think the hard part for me was not understanding how the thoracic surgeon and how the oncologist were not communicating. So I was getting one message from the oncologist saying, well, you can do this treatment, you can do that treatment. I speak with the surgeon, and his automatic response was, we need to take out your other lung.
Oh,
It was about that time that I think I really realized that I needed to look at different alternatives, because they were wanting to take out parts that I needed.
oh, yeah.
And, it's like, okay, you guys are getting real busy removing things, and I'm going to need some of these parts if I'm going to live.
Right.
And that's when I made the decision to start looking at options that would have never occurred to me in a million years.
Right. And Frieda, didn't they tell you that there were not 3 cases like yours anywhere in the world? Like the type of cancer that you had was so rare. Your condition was so rare.
The cancer itself is really not so rare. The fact that I had never had anything, I had never been diagnosed with it before, never had anything removed from my body before. They never found the origin of my cancer.
Oh,
And they
okay.
said that they could search the entire country, the entire world, and probably not find another case like mine. Because they
Wow.
were so rare that this would happen.
Wow. Now, how did it feel inside when all this time, did you feel crazy? Like, am I going crazy? Because you were trying to get to the bottom of this. You knew something was wrong. Obviously, you're not supposed to be throwing up blood. I mean, obviously there's something wrong and they're not finding it. But how did that feel to go back to doctor after doctor and have them tell you there's nothing wrong with you?
It was intuitive. That's the only thing that I can really say to you. When you're a healthy person, you know when you're sick.
Right.
You know when you have a cold. You know when you have a flu. You know intuitively when there's something wrong with your body. And I just wasn't buying it. I didn't believe it. I knew they were wrong.
Right.
Because I knew that I had never felt like this before. I knew that this was not normal. And I really didn't care. I knew it wasn't stress. I mean, if they were talking about stress, that's my everyday life. So it had nothing to do with stress. I just knew intuitively that there was something more there, and that I had to keep going until I found someone that would listen to what I was saying. And that's really the only thing I can tell you is intuitively I knew something was wrong.
Right. And no one knows your body the way you know your body.
the body's amazing. The body will tell you just about everything you want to know if you just get quiet enough and listen.
Right. And do you think that sometimes we've lost touch with that? Like if we're in pain, we take an aspirin. We shut off those pain receptors. It's basically telling your body to shut up. And your body's trying to tell us something, and maybe sometimes we don't listen to what it's telling us. We're not in tune with what it's telling us. But obviously, you were at this time. You knew something was wrong, and it was just a matter of getting someone to help you find what was really wrong.
I think it's real easy to blow off signs and to not recognize that there's something much bigger going on. And you're correct. I mean, obviously the pill that they gave me wasn't working, so I was all in for the pill. Give me a pill, I'll take the pill. That's great, no problem, let's move on. And really until the second surgery, Tracy, I really wasn't even on board with this was that big of a deal. Wow. Because like I said, I wasn't reading the internet anymore. Mm-hmm. It was like, that's too scary, I don't need to know all that, I'm fine, this is good, I've got it. I worked the entire time except for my healing period. Mm-hmm. And I worked a full-time job through the whole process. So it's very, very easy to stay in a mindset if you're not willing to open up your mind to the real possibilities that are out there. If you've never known anything but mainstream medicine, you're going to do exactly what they tell you to do and never give it a second thought. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it wasn't until they were talking about removing my total lung that it was a huge wake up. I mean, it was like screaming in my voice, in my head. Don't do that. Yeah. Do not do that. Yeah. So I looked for alternatives. You know, I can remember sitting and praying and saying, Lord, if you will just tell me what to do, which way to go, which way to look, I will work everything through a conclusion. Mm-hmm. So I went to several other hospitals and was basically told the same thing. There's no treatment. It is what it is. You need to have the lung removed and hope for the best. And I was at work one day, and a gentleman was talking to me about a healer in Madison, Indiana, by the name of Solomon Wiki. And that a lady that he had gone to church with who had cancer had gone to see him. Well, this is way out of my comfort zone. It's like, really, really, Lord, this is what you want me to do. I made a promise. I made the commitment. So a girlfriend and I drove from Atlanta to Madison, Indiana. He's, again, an Amish healer. So, I don't know a whole lot about the Amish. He's out in the middle of nowhere. We get to this small town, a little bitty town. We get in late the night before. No clue how to get to his place. Couldn't even find a hotel. I mean, we were just lost. And I always say that my angel and leather showed up because we were in this small, tiny little bar trying to figure out what we were going to do. And the waitress or the bartender overheard my girlfriend and I talking, and she asked me, can I ask you a personal question? Do you have cancer? And then people around the bar started listening to the conversation and what was going on. And my angel in leather, literally, motorcycle rider in leather, I'll get you to a hotel room. I'll come back to the hotel at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'll take you to Solomon Wiki. It was, the universe just works in funny ways. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, now I'm in Madison, Indiana, and now I'm following some guy that I met in a bar on a motorcycle wearing all leather, and I'm entrusting my life to him. And we just went with it. I really didn't expect to see him the next morning. But sure enough, he was there. We went through all the little back roads, everything else, end up on this farm. I'm not even sure I'm at the right farm. He says it's the farm. But it was dark. It was still dark. We were there, 5 o'clock in the morning. Because it's a first come, first served basis. And Lord knows I wanted to be first.
Wow. So you couldn't even call this Amish man and make an appointment. Like, what we think is normal is we call a doctor, they schedule an appointment, we show up. this is something kind of unheard of, that you just had to find this little farm out of nowhere, and you don't even have an appointment, you just kind of show up.
No, you can't make it. Obviously, you can't make an appointment because they don't have phones.
Right.
So you have to send a letter to Solomon and ask him if he will see you. And then you have to wait for his response. You have to send him a letter with a self-addressed envelope for him to write you back, and he just scribbled a note on the bottom of my letter to him of what date to be there. And off we went.
Wow. Man, when you think about it, I mean, just even the name Solomon Wiki, when I first heard that, I thought, this almost just sounds like unreal. Like, isn't that funny? Just kind of how when you pray a prayer, sometimes God just has the funniest answers. You have these gleaming hospitals where you're at some of these big hospitals, you're speaking to, well-read doctors, and you're like, what's the answer? And now you're here. It's almost, if the situation, if it weren't so grave, if it weren't so incredibly serious, it's almost a little funny. I'm just picturing this right now, and I'm seeing this Harley guy in leather taking you to an Amish man out in the sticks in Indiana. Because I lived in Indiana for decades, and I'm just picturing this right now, just going through the cornfields, and just what a wild, crazy ride, Frieda.
No, I'm thinking, okay, this guy is going to take us off. We're going to be dead. I'm following someone I don't know. I've met them in my bar. I'm doing everything that my mother ever told me not to do.
Yes.
But at that point in time, I had no choice. I mean, it was like I could not see any other way to get there.
Yeah.
So I had to go strictly on faith that this person's heart was in the right spot, and I would live to see another day. And off we went.
Wow.
So we get there, and he's like, well, I'll wait until at least daybreak. And it was so beautiful. The farm was beautiful. There were horses. There were deers out in the meadow. The sunrise is starting to come up. It was a beautiful, beautiful scene. Of course, Frieda being Frieda, I don't know what I'm doing, so I walk up to the house, which is not a good idea. So I walk up to the house, I knock on the door, and they answer the door, and of course everything is candlelit. They're getting ready to have their breakfast, and they just tell me to go back where I came from and wait, which is what I did. And I stood out there, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and then Solomon and his team came through. They went into this little building. When I mean a building, I mean a wood shed-like building. It wasn't anything hospital or medical doctor looking at all. And the whole time I'm looking at my girlfriend going, this is so ridiculous. But I thought if nothing else, I'd get a great spiritual journey out of it. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, I'll get that out of it.
Yeah.
So finally, it's my turn to go in. And they take these bottles of herbs, and they do, and I want to pronounce it right, so we might have to fix this, but where they look at your iris.
Oh, yes, iridology. Yes.
Yes, they look at your iris, and they diagnose the problem through your iris. Mm-hmm. So he keeps taking all of these little bottles of herbs, and because it's all natural, and resting him on my knee. He's not talking a whole lot, and said that my cancer had actually started in my pancreas. I said, so I have cancer of the pancreas too? He's like, no, that's where it started. And basically that my body wasn't digesting the foods properly, for lack of a better word. I wasn't absorbing the type of nutrients I needed, and my body was beginning to shut down. And he asked me if I understood what cancer was, and I said, well, yeah, it's a mutation of cells, which annoyed him immensely, because he said, well, if it was a mutation of a cell, your body would attack it, just like it would any other illness, and your body's not attacking it. There's nothing wrong with the cell. There's nothing wrong with your body that it can't fix itself, because if it was that simple, your body would repair itself. That's what your body's meant to do. That's the way it's built. You get a cold, your body is going to fight it off. You get the flu, your body fights it off. So he puts me on this herbal regimen and then tells me that I am not allowed to eat anything. Butter had to be unsalted. The only place I could shop in the grocery store was in the vegetable and fruit aisle. I am not a vegetarian by any stretch of the imagination. And I had to juice. And the juicing, I could put anything in it, but the main ingredients were celery and carrots. But I could spice it up with tomatoes, garlic, onion, bell pepper, apples, oranges, anything else that I chose to do it with. The only drink that I could have was coffee with no sugar and raw honey. This was a total life change for me. So I left there, and my girlfriend, we stopped at Jimmy Dean's on the way home so she can eat breakfast, and of course there's nothing on the menu I can eat. And I'm just so angry. I'm just like, really? I cannot believe this is what I'm going to have to do. And the girlfriend that had gone with me was so excited. Oh, this is so wonderful. This is so exciting. This is going to be the greatest thing. And the whole time, I'm like, if you don't shut up, I promise you I'm going to throw you off on the side of the road. Just shut up. I don't want to hear anything else about it. I was really, really angry, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. She's like, well, we're going to do it. And I had promised God that I would work it through to a conclusion. So, I don't know, from Atlanta to there, maybe 12, 13-hour drive. Of course, we had to stop on the way home and get those celeries and carrots to get started the next morning.
Right.
And we make my first concoction, and it tasted so bad. It was like, oh, my God, I am not going to be able to do this. This is not going to work. I'm not doing it. At this time, my brother was there with me. So he had now moved in with me and was kind of my primary caregiver. He was there all the time. My mother was there during my surgeries, and she would go back to Florida after I was well on the way to recovery. Mm-hmm. And my brother insisted, oh, yes, you are going to do it. And I said, well, you taste it. I mean, it's horrible. So we began to make all kinds of concoctions, and I would drink the juice every single day. I think I had to drink a quart or maybe 2 quarts of it a day. But anything else I drank through the course of the day had to be freshly squeezed too. And finally got to a point that I was drinking my juices regularly. I actually got a carrot glow about me. I literally had an orange hue because it was an 8-week treatment of doing this along with the herbs that he recommended. So I'm taking my herbs, I'm drinking my juices, but so many beautiful and amazing things happened during the process. And Tracy, I know I shared this with you, but my mom lives in Florida.
Yes.
And her community, my mom was coming to see me, and she'd kind of shared with them what I was going to do. And of course, everybody had an opinion, but my family from day one said, Frieda, it's not our job to tell you what to do. It's our job to support you in your decisions and whatever decisions you make about your body and what you're willing to do and not do. So I was never swayed by my family one way or another to do something. But my mom was coming down for a visit. She drives down, and her entire trunk and back seat is full of oranges, tangerines, grapefruit that all of her neighbors had picked from their trees and their yards. So for her to bring to me, so I would constantly have this influx of fruit that I could drink. Because that's basically what I drank during the day was fruit juice all day long. And I stayed on the diet every 6 weeks. Now the doctor, when I told the doctor what I was going to do, when I told the oncologist that I wanted to look for alternatives, I wanted to try different things, he had said to me, you know, Frieda, if that's what you want to do, certainly 6 weeks is not going to make a difference. But if you continue on this path, I have to let you know that you could come in and one day there will be nothing that we can do for you if you don't make a decision. said, I'm willing to take that chance. I'm willing to take the chance. So every 6 weeks, I went and had my MRIs. And for anybody that is going through any type of difficult situation, be it cancer or any other illness, where you go and you get your test results, and then they want you to wait 5 or 6 days for your test results, which I adamantly would not do. I mean, I'd be calling. I made sure I had the first appointment. I was there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I wanted my test results. I know you have them, so give them to me.
Yeah.
I'm not an easy patient at all to get along with. A lot of fussing, a lot of cussing, but I always got my test results the same day. And it always came back, no change, no change, no change, no change. So I kept with the program. And I think the last test that I went to get was in May. And I was trying to get the test results back. Called the oncologist, got jerked around there, so I called the...
Now, how long had you been doing this at this point? Sorry to interrupt. How long had you been juicing to this point?
8 weeks,
Okay.
but a year and a half has already passed in between the time that I told him I'm going to look for alternatives, and then I started the juicing process. It had been a year and a half that every 6 weeks I went for an MRI to see if there was a change
Okay.
in the status.
Okay.
So it's about May, and I can't get anybody to give me my test results. So I say, well, send me to the radiology department. And, typically they're not going to do that. But for some reason they did. I got the radiologist on the phone, told him who I was, told him I wanted my test results, and he started reading off my test results. And when he spoke about my lung, he said there was a calcification. And I was like, excuse me? He said, yeah, I see a calcification, but that's it. And he said, what are they treating you for? Why are you having these tests done? And when I told him it was melanoma, he was like, I'm not seeing that. No, it's not melanoma. Because I never did allow them to biopsy it. When they told me the melanoma had come back, I would not let them do a biopsy because I was fearful, as horrible as it sounds, is that they would just go ahead and take the lung. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't biopsy, they'd just take the lung, and that would be the end of it.
Right.
So I did not have it biopsied. So I can't even swear that it was ever cancer again. They would swear that it was, but I can't swear to that. Mm-hmm. And I asked the doctor, the radiologist, I said, are you sure? If I was your wife, if I was your daughter, are you sure that that is not melanoma? And he's like, yes. So the next time I see my doctor, after that test, I have to go see the oncologist again, which is amazing to me because you would think that he was reading my test results. And I asked him, I said, so, Doc, what had you so worked up about my last test results that you think I need to continue to do this? I spoke to the radiologist, and his first response was, well, radiologists speak in really funny terms, and they're hard to understand. And he starts flipping through my short story because my folder now looks like a book. And he reads, and he finally starts to slow down, and he reads some more, and then he kind of looks at me, and he keeps reading. And he just kind of takes a deep breath and a pause, and I'm like, so what are you worried about? And he said, well, I guess nothing. He said, when is your anniversary date? They like to tie everything to an anniversary date. And my first surgery was in June. So he said, well, let's do one more MRI in June and see what those results show. And I was like, okay. And I said, what if it's the same thing? He said, well, then I would have to say that you're a very, very blessed woman. And that's kind of the story. That's the way it happened. After that, I went every 6 months to get an MRI. Then it moved out to once a year. Then it moved out to once every 5 years. And I don't go at all now. And I've had no severe health issues since. But I truly, truly, truly believe, again, if people listen to their bodies, if they're open to thinking about alternative ways to look at healing themselves, that there are enormous possibilities, and faith and belief and just taking control, just taking full control. And I used to tell people even back then, when they say manage health care, they mean you better manage your health care.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
that's the story.
yeah. Now, so when you were first diagnosed with melanoma, what year was that?
1998.
So from 1998 till now, you're looking at almost 20 years later
Yes.
that you are alive and kicking.
Trust me. Very alive and very kicking.
Yes, that is absolutely amazing. Because, you know, one thing that the doctors, did they ever tell you how long you had to live? Did they ever give you what did they say?
Yeah. When I went back, when they said the spot had returned, and this is good, it's funny now. It was not funny at the time.
Right.
You know, they strip you down, put you in their little paper gown because they're going to do their exam, check on my lymph nodes, see if there's any swelling, see if there's any change. And me, I have to ask all the questions. So I'm laying there. I'm completely naked except for this little cloth thing that they give you, or paper wrap. Mm-hmm. And he's checking me out, and I'm like, so, Doc, what does this mean? What do you think? How long have I got? And he said, well, honestly, you need to start getting your affairs in order. I totally flipped out. I jumped up off that examining table to his surprise. I'm stark naked. I start putting on my clothes. I'm cussing like a sailor. And I'm asking him, why are you doing an exam then? What is the point of all this? If you are so convinced that I have no time, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. I'm crying. I'm sobbing. I'm getting dressed. He's looking at me like I have two heads. I mean, he doesn't know what's going on. I go zooming out of his office, slamming out of the whole cancer area, running out of the front of the building, and I just throw myself down on the ground, and I'm just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And my brother was with me, and he came over. He's like, Frieda, what just happened? And I told him everything that the doctor had said, and I'm like, how can he tell me that? How can he say that to me? He doesn't know. He doesn't know that. And I just like I sensed when I was sick, I kept hearing that nagging voice, why don't I feel like I'm dying? If he's telling me I'm dying, wouldn't I kind of sense that? Wouldn't I know that? Wouldn't there be something intuitive about knowing that you're dying? And I never felt that way. Oh, but it was, like I said, at the time, it was a bad thing. But now I look back and I think about what a fool I must have looked like, just screaming and yelling and crying and running and smoking a cigarette after that.
Oh.
It's comical now that I think about it, but yeah, I mean and that's another thing. Don't believe everything that they tell you, because it's all statistic. Mm-hmm. Statistically, maybe I should be dead, but I'm not a statistic.
Right.
Special, personal image of God.
Yes.
Or whatever your greater power is to you. And we are made in their image, and there's nothing statistical about me.
Exactly. And the one thing that any doctor or anyone who would maybe give you little time like this, that would say, oh, you have 3 months or 2 weeks or 6 months, whatever it is, one thing that they're not factoring into the equation is you.
Exactly.
What are you going to do? I mean, maybe that doctor was right if you did nothing. But you didn't do that. You were scared, but you got tough. And you did take matters into your own hands. And there was this something in you that says, I'm not going to let anyone shovel dirt over me. I'm not going to let someone give me a death sentence, not without a fight. And that's that spirit that I hear inside of you, that Frieda, that spirit just, I caught that fire from you because when I first talked to you, I was so docile. I had kind of felt like, and I know this may sound really negative and maybe even a little self-pity-ish, but I just thought maybe everybody would be better off without me because I had become a burden to people. People were taking care of my children. I couldn't even hold my head up. And so I thought, I just had that thought. And I remember you saying, take your power back. And you can take this power. This is yours. And then I remember you saying, I would howl at the moon if I had to. And something about that wonderful spirit that you have, even that spirit, your reaction to that doctor was like, how many people have sat inside of a doctor's office and been told get their affairs in order, and they meekly go home and they get their affairs in order? You didn't accept that. You took that kicking and screaming literally and said, yes, you literally, that's how you took that information. And you fought back. You got in the foxhole and you fought back. And there were a couple of things that I thought of with your story when you talked about that carrot glow. What a lot of people may not realize that I've read from like the old school herbalists and the naturopathic doctors that come from years and years ago is when your body is so full of poison, and any cancer, Dr. Christopher used to say, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's this awesome herbalist. And he used to say at the heart of any cancer is a weak, sluggish, overtaxed, overloaded liver. So when the first things that happens when you begin to juice is your body starts to release that old stale bile. And then when your body can't process it in the normal means, your skin takes over because your digestive system works together. So the largest organ of elimination in your body helps out with the other organs, your liver, your kidneys, and it starts to go through your skin. So that is actually old stale bile. So when you said that, I was like, yeah, I remember those days. And then I'm sure even while you were juicing, as your body began to clean itself out, your skin went back to this, its normal color. You didn't stay orange.
No, I didn't stay orange.
No. And that's that bile. Your body was cleaning itself out, doing its job. So
the amazing thing was this is from June, July, August. I had to go through the holiday season. With my little vegetarian diet where everybody else was eating turkeys and hams and mashed potatoes and dressings, or I sat in my corner with my salad or whatever I could come up with that was completely organic, or not necessarily organic, but I was vegan. I was basically a vegan.
Right.
But I was blessed. I was so blessed. I had a girlfriend that came in. Like I said, I worked the entire time. She juiced for me every day. She prepared all of my meals for me. I would come home. I would have something to eat other than a potato or a salad. And she cleaned my house for me. She did my laundry for me. So all I had to do was do the diet, get my rest, stay in spirit, and go to work. And it was a blessing. And I shared with you before, I got on every prayer list I could get on.
Yeah.
If there was a prayer list to get on, my name was on it. And just the love and the support and the people that came into my life from out of nowhere just lifted me. And they kept me buoyant long enough to help me make that next step and that next step. And when I thought about cheating, and trust me, I thought about cheating. I'm from Indiana. We eat meat and potatoes.
Yes.
I was dying for steak.
Yeah.
And every time, I would think, what's one little bite of beef isn't going to kill me? It would be those cards or letters encouraging me and telling me to hold on, and that they were sending me healing light and praying for me. That just kept me buoyant and kept me steadfast on that path to get through that mission no matter what it took.
Oh, Frieda, I know what you're talking about. And when you say these words, I think of like maybe it's a loved one that's in the situation that you're in. And the person listening to this is not sick, but they know somebody who is in the condition that you were in. And I don't know if people realize, I think we underestimate the power of a spoken word, of a card, of a letter, of a word of encouragement, of a box of fruit, of a bag of carrots. I mean, I'll never forget this. As I was telling you, like when I started to talk to you, I really honestly had begun to give up hope. And I remember walking into my kitchen and stood up on the table where all the cards and letters that people had sent me, and the table was a big table and it was covered. And I saw that and it was just so powerful. People just have no idea the impact that they can make.
I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Four Agreements.
No.
If you haven't, it's a great book.
Okay.
And one of the first and the most important agreement is be impeccable with your word.
Wow.
Be impeccable with your word. And it comes from a Latin word, impeccable, and it means speak without sin. And so you have to be very careful about what you say to people. And I tell people all the time when they come to me, I still hear from people that are going through similar situations, and they're, how did you do it? What did you do?
Right.
And the first thing I tell them is claim your health. First and foremost, claim it.
Yeah.
Claim it for yourself. Believe that you can have it. And, do everything that your body and everything that spirit is leading you to do.
Yes. And what you just said makes me think of that proverb that states life and death are in the power of the tongue.
Exactly.
We need to speak life over ourselves and life over the people around us. So powerful. And, just the things that we say to ourselves, even inside of ourselves, just that internal language, like what are we saying to ourselves? Are we speaking life? And then how can we give away what we don't have? If we're not saying those words to ourselves, those uplifting words, then how we don't have it to give to somebody else. It's not selfish to love yourself.
I don't think you can really give love to anyone else until you love yourself.
Yes, exactly. So if you now, I was going to ask you something, but then something else just came to mind. So these changes that Solomon Wiki gave you to make, basically incorporating 1 to 2 quarts of juice, changing over to a vegan diet, taking in some herbs, nothing drastic. I remember seeing your list and it wasn't anything crazy. It was just a few herbs. But so those all look like, this is simple. But simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, does it?
No, it doesn't. Try preparing a meal where you cannot open a can, open a box, or open a bag. Unless it's a bag of carrots.
Yeah. So, and
the new program.
Right. And sometimes sometimes we do give our power away because we want to take a pill and make everything all better, and then we don't have to do anything. Like we don't have to change because what we're doing is fun.
I'm sure some people will find the issue with this, but I know other people that have been through similar situations understand it when I say it. Having had cancer was the best experience of my life.
Wow.
It changed me completely, and it changed my whole life completely. And I am so very, very grateful to have gone through that experience and got on the other side, that I'm a completely different person than I was.
Oh, Frieda, that is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And not only did you experience a transformation in your own heart, your own life, your own being, then you so openly shared your experience, like you didn't keep it to yourself.
No.
And I can honestly say, sorry, while I say this, it's hard to say it without choking up. I am alive today because you reached out to me. You encouraged me along the way. You shared your life experience. You told me what you did, and just lit that fire inside of me that just wanted to live. Like that, that just, if you don't have that feeling of like, I'll do whatever it takes, I will do what I need to do, and I want to live. I have a reason to be here.
And it's okay to do those things and still be angry while you're doing it.
Yes.
Don't think I didn't stomp around for a little bit when people were eating turkey in front of me. I mean, because I did.
Right.
It's not like I joyfully skipped off with my juice. It didn't go down that way, but
Right.
like I told you, I would have done anything.
Right.
Anything in order to make a difference. But the best part was that I was in control now.
Yes.
I was taking the steps to be in control. I was in control of what was going to happen to my body.
Yeah.
I was in control of my faith. And I felt blessed. I thought, what a blessing. Even if I don't make it, what a great gift that God has given me. It gave me the opportunity to reach out to people and tell them how they had changed my life. If they wondered if they had ever touched me or touched anybody, what difference they made in the world. They made a difference in the world by the way they interacted with me. I wrote those love letters. I prepared. I mean, I prepared to die as much as I prepared to live, just in case. But I felt like it was a blessing. I had control of everything. I could tell my mother everything I wanted, how I wanted things handled, where I wanted my personal belongings to go. All of that was handled as well, but I always felt like I was in control of it. No one had control of me anymore. It was me. And I was running my life and my show.
Wow, that is truly amazing. And you really had a true friend right by your side. I remember you telling me that when you were eating some kind of beans or something on a holiday, she was right there beside you on that holiday.
Yes, it was, I believe, Thanksgiving. And my brother had gone to my brother was committed, but he was like, Frieda, you got to give me a break, man. I got to have some turkey and dressing. So he went to his girlfriend's house, but the that was preparing my meals. Her and her husband came over and had dinner with me, and they ate what I ate. And on that day, we had cabbage soup, which if you've never had cabbage soup, is fantastic. I still make it and eat it all the time.
Oh, really? So it doesn't have to taste terrible. And the juicing process can be better too, huh? I made some pretty wicked concoctions myself. I remember my little son would juice for me, and he would make the juice, and it was black. It was because he had purple cabbage, red cabbage in it, and all kinds of greens. And by the time you put that all together with the beets, it just was this awful looking drink, and it didn't taste much better than it looked. And now I realize that there are flavor pairings, and you can put a concoction together, and honestly, it can taste really, really good. So, years later, we can look back and say, hey, it doesn't have to taste like wallpaper paste.
No, and so many people at work, there are so many people where I work now that juice. They do a quarterly cleansing, and I encourage them in that. I participate in that at work. Okay, we're drinking juice. Oh, yay, I love this part.
Yeah.
But I don't give up on it because I know what it did for me.
Yes.
I encourage them wholeheartly to do that and to do a cleanse occasionally and just cleanse your body.
Right.
It's a wonderful thing.
Right, because we'll take our car in and we'll get an oil change, and we'll change the transmission oil and do all those things to our car, but we never stop to think that car maybe we'll have it 5 years, maybe a little longer, and we have our body our entire life, and we never do an oil change, which is really essentially what you're doing when you stop and do a juice cleanse or a juice fast. So that's a good point too, is don't wait until you need to do this. Just take those preventative measures and so that you never end up in a situation that you were in or that I were in where you had to make a drastic change and you had to do it now.
Actually, with your juicing, you will feel better. You will have more energy.
Definitely.
You just feel better about everything in general. I
Yeah.
mean, it's powerful. I mean, you do feel a whole lot better. I mean, I have to say, other than my body acting a little strange on occasion and giving me some unexpected surprises, I felt great. I felt fantastic. Like I said, when everybody else was coming down with the flu and cold, you could have thrown me into a room full of people with the flu, and it never would have bothered me.
Isn't that something?
It was amazing. It was truly amazing.
Wow. Yeah, and one thing that people don't stop and take into consideration is that we have this amazing immune system, and if we really understood how it worked and how it's there to protect us, we wouldn't destroy it in order to rid our body of something, of something that shouldn't be there. But instead, it sounded to me like instead of focusing on your disease and on your sickness, you put your focus on health. And I think that that's important too, is that we can get caught up in our disease and forget to focus on the positive and on getting our body into a healthy state where no disease can live. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, Frieda, this has really been just such a wonderful experience, and I'm so thankful that you took the time today to share with us and to give of yourself. And I just know that this is gonna bless a lot of people to hear your story, and I know that it's going to inspire many, many people, and I hope in the way that it did me. So I just...
You still have the regimen, right? You still have Solomon Wiki's directions, right?
I have it on my old email. If you have it, would you want to shoot it over to me, and maybe we can put it in the email list or in the newsletter?
I can certainly do that because I never get rid of it.
Okay, thank you. I know I have it, but that might be easier because it was many, many years ago when I crossed paths with you. So that might be a little easier, and then we'll get it out to people so that they can know what you did, basically word for word. So thank you, Frieda, so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. I have really, really wanted to try to get my message out in a big way. And you've really given me that platform to do that. So I want to thank you very much for that. And if people have any questions, all you have to do is forward them to me, and I'll be more than happy to talk with anybody. I'll be more than happy to share my email address with anybody.
Okay.
But most important, just one big takeaway is that you need to claim your health.
Yes.
And take control.
Claim your health and take control. That is golden advice from somebody who did just that. And Frieda, I was thinking, I'm sure people are going to want to hear from you again, because I already want to hear from you again. I always feel like that when we talk. It's always just feels like this anointed conversation that changes me in the inside and inspires me. And what I was thinking is, if people do want to send me their questions, of course we can forward them to you, but maybe, often what I find is that there'll be a question that gets asked again and again. So maybe we could get back together again and answer some of these questions that I know are going to start flying in. So maybe... Okay, that sounds wonderful, Frieda. Well, I thank you so much, and I guess we'll just say thank you to everybody for listening. And I truly hope that you, as a listener, as a person, I hope you feel like you just listened in on this conversation and that you were very much a part of it, because that's how Frieda and I both wanted you to feel, like you were on the phone with us, sharing in every part and feeling her story and what she had to say. And we just welcome you to ask questions, to leave comments, and I'll make sure that Frieda gets every last one of them. And we just thank you so much for listening in on this with us and for being a part of our journey. Thank you.